So carrying on with the meeting tonight, we have a guest, I'm going to call her a guest lecturer, a guest speaker. We have Deborah, who I met earlier this year at the coffee shop when we were displaying the photos from the Calgary show. So she's kindly agreed to come and speak to us tonight through Laura Lee. That was her connection here. And I'll let her speak.
Okay, so Laura Lee says I have to use the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, she's very bossy. Does anybody else notice that about Laura Lee? She's very bossy. Yeah. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
It's always fun to be in a room full of creatives because there's an energy that we have when we're into our hobbies and we're into looking at the world through our eyes. And so I've done photography and I've played with all kinds of different hobbies. And so what I wanted to explain to you tonight is how I got to the point I am in life now and what I discovered on my creative journey, because I think the more creatives share their stories, because this is what this is about, I have a story to tell. The more we share our stories, the more we learn and the more we grow, and the more we get in touch with who we really are. And so I'm going to talk about my journey, and then I'm going to talk about a wonderful experience that I had with Blair, and that's what got me into this mess in the first place, was by opening my mouth, and Laura Lee says, "Oh, Deb, you know how she is. Do you guys get persuaded to do things that you didn't really want to do, but you got to do it anyway?" So anyway, my story is this. I had a long career, and when I turned and decided in my mid-60s, decided that I no longer wanted to do a career, that I really wanted to find out who I was and who I am, I said, I want to be an artist. And why not, right? We can all be artists, right? So I had to start right from the very beginning. And why did I choose that I wanted to be an artist? Because I love to doodle and I love to draw. And it's what I did as a kid. And you know, as you get older and you get past that 6'5" mark, you discover that, wow, I really like what I did as a kid, because that's who I am. Who you are as a kid is who you are when you're over 65. Just warning you for all those that are in the middle who are looking for careers, and I always wanted to be, whatever. So I had to start from the beginning. You just don't all of a sudden say, I'm an artist, and you're an artist. You've got to know and learn the skills. So I had no idea how big that art world was, right? Because I knew what I liked, but I had to really touch everything. So I tried painting landscapes. Okay, didn't do it for me, right? I can take a picture if I want to see a beautiful landscape. So what I discovered was I was starting to narrow myself down and find out who I really was. And so then I took different courses. I took charcoal, and I took drawing, and I took figure drawing. I wasn't very good at the nudes, but that's okay. That was just a comfort zone thing, right? So then I discovered, someone said to me, don't take watercolor, because watercolor is really difficult, and you're just a beginner, so you won't like that. Well, I took watercolor, and guess what? It was magical. I loved watercolors. And is it hard? Yes, it's hard, but it was magical because you just had to drop water and paint together, and it created this beautiful flow. So great, I'm gonna do watercolors, okay? And then I decided that, what am I gonna paint? Well, I know I don't like landscapes, and I know I don't like still life, and I know I don't like, so I knew all that I didn't like. But what I did like is portraits. So I said, I'm going to do portraits. I'm going to draw people. So that happened, and I started drawing people. But I could never get them to look like them. The portrait never looked like themselves, like what I was drawing. And so I realized, okay, I'm not very good at realism, but I do like drawing wonky, because it was exciting. So what is wonky? Wonky means that nothing is, you don't have to measure. When you do a portrait, you measure, and you have to have 3 eyes between this, and there's all these rules. Well, I had lived a life full of rules. I'm a retired police officer. So I lived a life of reality and a life of rules, and I just was not interested in more rules. I wanted to play like I did when I was a kid. And so I really got into drawing wonky characters, you know. Some people say they're cartoon, and some say they were caricatures, and really they weren't any of that. So then I took a course here at CATSA and met this wonderful instructor, and he says, I'm going to teach you about concept drawing. So, something new, so why not? So then he introduced me to drawing characters for a story and then drawing the scene. Okay? Well, that sounds exciting. And there was no rules. You could make up any kind of story you wanted. And so I said, this is what I'm going to do. So COVID hit, and that kind of cut down classes and life and everything else. So I said, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to draw a character every day for a year. Okay, and like anything else, you learn and you begin and you start. And I started looking, and I started copying other people's, and I took video classes, and I did everything to learn there is to draw about people. And the year flew by, and then I said, I'm going to do this for another year. So for 2 years, 2 solid years, I drew a character every day. And somewhere in there, the magic happened. Because I no longer had to take lessons. I no longer had to copy other people's work. I no longer had to do what everybody said you need to do at the beginning. I was able to reach the magic of when everything that I had learned over the past 4 years happened without me thinking about it. It's like you guys taking a photography, you know, the long-term photographers. You just do it without thinking about it. And so then I started getting the magic of feeling all these characters. Now you would think that if you draw 2 years full of characters that you would have all these characters. Some days I would sit down and draw 4 or 5 characters and none of them looked alike. Because I was able to reach a point where I trusted myself to not think and let my heart do the talking. Now this sounds like, if I told this to my husband, he'd say, oh God, here she goes again, you know, off into La La Land. But it's true. It's true when you're a creative and you can connect, really connect to who you are, that's the magic happens. And then once the magic happens, you start to recognize the story. And we all have a story, is that correct? Do you agree with that? We all have a story because we all see it from a different point of view. What I see isn't what you see. What you see isn't what I see. I have my own version and I have my own story because I bring my own experiences and my own knowledge and my own style. That magic word that every artist is looking for. What's your style? Well, I discovered my style, and my style was beyond anything that you could imagine because it was so different and so fun and so childlike and so simple that it almost didn't seem real that after 4 years, this is how simple I was drawing, you know? But it's where my heart was. It's where I connected with my soul. So I thought, wow, this is pretty freaking fantastic. I wonder what it'd be like if I did it in 3D. So back to square one, back to the videos and back to the lessons and back to learning a new medium. And I was able to take the 2D dimension of my drawing and make it into 3D. And that, again, was another real magical moment because I was able to discover a land of imagination. I let my imagination, I'd have this ball of clay and I'd say, I wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to say, okay, what am I going to create today? What do you want to be? This little ball of clay, what do you want to be? And it was, I'd show up, these things would show up. And so That's my story. That was my journey. My journey is when I learned to really trust who I was inside and let my artistic skills take over. And it's no different for photography. Whether you're a beginner or a long term, you reach a point where there's something about what you're doing that is all about you. So there's something in my artwork that is all about me. So I'm going to show you a couple of things. So I'll go how all of this got me introduced to Laura Lee, and we would sit down at the coffee shop and have these wonderful conversations about creative. What is it like to be a creative? You know. So when you create your work, and I'm sure as you as photographers, when you create your work, the biggest challenge for me was putting it out in public. I wasn't, you know, because it makes you vulnerable, right? It makes you vulnerable because it's about who you are. And I am about to tell people who I am and what I'm about. And there's all those adult fears that come that you don't have when you're a kid. When you're a kid, imagination is the best thing ever. But it's maybe not so when you're an adult. So I said, okay, and so I got Laura Lee to take a picture of what I do. And I explained to her my story. So this is what I do. This is I go from drawing a picture, drawing a bird, drawing, okay, what is it gonna happen? Who is this? And then I discover, and I just let myself, I trust my heart and I trust my soul. And that's like, okay, what do I have here? And then I said to Laura Lee, she took these pictures, and Laura Lee said, well, I'm going to contribute to this. So then Laura Lee adds the story.
That's cool.
Now are you getting the story? I was able to tell her my stories. But you as photographers can add to it. So look what happens when you get two true creatives together. Is this not just the most exciting guy you've ever seen? He's out there, and you can see everything about him. And what does it bring you back to? It brings you back to playing, right? So I discovered that I like to play. I like to play. I like to do work. I like to share an imaginary story. And this is me off on an adventure. Okay, so there's another one. I think I really notice a lot of wings show up in my work, a lot of wishing shows up, a lot of stars, a lot of moons, all that stuff that you play when you're a kid. I was a daydreamer, and it shows. Okay, Laura Lee, what we got next? Now look at the difference, right? You bring two creatives together, what do you have? This is a whole new world. This is an imagination. Okay, Laura Lee, what do we got? When was the last time you seen a monk with steampunk glasses, right? And I just let all this stuff come, and wings, and I just let it come, and I let these characters come out of my soul. And then Laura Lee adds. And this is my Christmas card this year. You know, all is calm and all is bright. So that's how I discovered that pushing yourself and learning more and really disconnecting from the thought process of what you're doing and trusting the magic of when you let your life, your experiences, your soul come together. So Laura Lee and I have lots of discussions about this, and this is what got me into this show, or into this classroom today, or your club today, because she said, would you come and meet young Blair, who's going to put up a display for us? So I ended up coming up, and Blair was there, and he was going to put up a display, and he had all these pictures. And I just let him show his pictures, and he was saying, you know, I really like this shot, I really like that shot. And he was looking at everything, and he looked at his chickadee, and he says, oh, that's not a good shot. And he pushed it to the side. You remember that? Yeah. And so I said to him, what's your story? And he said, what what do you mean, what's my story? And he said, these are my pictures. I went over and I took all these look at these pictures, aren't they fantastic? They are fantastic. And they were fantastic, and you could feel that he thought they were fantastic. But he's got to play it to an audience, right? And that's what creatives do. If you want to share your work, you've got to bring your audience in. You've got to tell your audience the story. They've got to feel the emotion of what it's all about. So I made him tell me his story. And then I said, okay, can I tell you what I see? I'm going to tell you your story. And so I went through and we pulled things, and we ended up with this as his story. I'm sorry. Okay, you're fine. The highlight of our story. And she. Yeah, so we pulled it, he went through his pictures and we pulled.
Sorry, I'm going to get this Photoshop for a second.
Okay. And there it was, the story. There was the adventure. There was the emotion. And you can see totally, and you know, why I picked what I picked. Because this was, we said, you know, like a plot has the scene, you have the main character, and you have the conflict around it, right? That's what a story is always about. There's something to overcome. So this was, he met the fox, and then he went into the fox's world. And that's where you want to take the audience, right? You want to take the audience not about how good the shot is, not about the right coloring, not about the lighting, all those things that we focus so much on and shut off the emotion. What he told me was this story, and I'm going to read it to you. It was the first heavy snow of the season, and I spotted her bright orange coat as she crossed the road heading toward a small grove of pine trees to search for her breakfast. She stopped suddenly and stared back at me, daring me to follow. So I did. She pretended I wasn't there as she searched the snow for the one careless mouse too busy seeking its own breakfast to pay attention to what lurked above. She continued to ignore me as I followed her up a small hill leading into a secluded meadow, as if she was trying to tell me to watch and learn. The local birds were not as welcoming of my presence and squawked their displeasure as my crunching footsteps in the snow invaded the peace of the quiet winter morning. Out of breath, I stopped to take in the beauty of the moment, feeling the crispness of the air in my lungs, noticing the cold settings in my cheeks, when I realized all had gone quiet. She too had stopped, knowing that more than just my eyes were watching her. She stared directly at me, letting me know it was time to go. And as she turned her back to me to flee, the only sound I heard was the clicking of my camera, echoing across the meadow, bidding her goodbye. So do you see the difference in the story? You see how he had all these pictures of all kinds of things of his adventure, and he turned it into the story. Do you want to comment on that, Blair?
I think for myself, it's just been very timely. Working with George and the whole project, working with George and the whole project of getting your story out or really identifying what's around you, what your day is like. I really struggle with that, and I really struggle with storytelling. So having this collaboration and really starting to think about why I'm there, what's around me, and what I can learn from this. Guys, it's been such a turning moment for me in my photography life. And this has only been a week or 2 weeks ago. So, you know, like I said, I've just been really struggling with how to tell a story and just understanding this and really thinking about this. Even going out the last couple of days, I'm really starting to look at, you know, what's this environment? What are we doing? What is this deer doing? What is this porcupine doing?